Welcome to 33 Founders, a series about founders of the coolest startups. Brought to you by 33 Voices and hosted by Chase Jennings and Jenna Abdu.
Yeah, so basically as a student, when you're looking for help, all you need to do is visit the site, search for the subject you're looking for help with, so in this case, French philosophy. And then basically what happens is you get to see a full list of all of our tutors who can help with that subject. You can see their profiles, what they've tutored before. You can see their reviews from other students. And then if there's a tutor that you really specifically want to work with, you can send them a message. Or if you're like, oh no, this assignment is due tomorrow, or I have a test on this, coming up in a few hours, you can click a button that just says start a lesson right now. And what happens is InstaEDU will start reaching out to our tutors who are currently online. At the moment, that means either on Facebook chat or GChat. And we'll match you up with a tutor who can connect with you right away. So usually that's under a minute. You'll literally be connected. You'll see a little bit of information about the tutor. Jack is a philosophy major at Harvard, 100% positive reviews, and then you guys can jump right into a lesson. So you'll be connected in our lesson space. You have access to video chat, a collaborative text editor. So if you're working on an essay, you could upload that, work on it together. There's a whiteboard. You can, upload a PNG or a problem set there, write on it together. And then it's meant to be totally flexible. So if you just have a quick 10-minute question, you can just ask and then go back, to working on your homework by yourself. Or if you want to dive in, do a 2-3 hour lesson, that's an option as well.
Fantastic. So if I do feel like I have a connection with somebody, I can speak to that one person at any time again, if they are available.
Yeah, if they're available. So basically, you can either do an on-demand lesson and get whoever is available at that moment, or schedule a lesson with a tutor that you really like or has the exact expertise that you were looking for.
Okay, so let's shift gears for a second. Let's talk about the journey of InstaEDU. What's made the greatest contribution to your success?
I think the big thing for us is that InstaEDU actually started out of an in-home tutoring business. So that really helped sort of drive both how we saw the space and where we saw the needs, and then the inspiration to actually build it. So prior to co-founding InstaEDU, my brother Dan and I were running an in-home tutoring company called Cardinal Scholars as a side project. The basic premise there is that we wanted to match local families up with tutors from top universities. So we were at Stanford in the Palo Alto area, and then Columbia, New York, and Boston, and in Boston as well with Harvard and MIT. And basically through that process, we said, hey, tutoring is a really interesting space. It helps a lot of students. That one-on-one personal connection is really important, but it's very exclusive. Most students honestly can't afford to spend $50 to $100 an hour on a private tutor. And most students don't actually need that very structured in-home tutoring model where someone's coming to your home on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 7 to 8. So we started really thinking about this problem and how we could better solve it, and said, hey, the one thing that really exists is, every student needs support at some time. What if you could just connect with a tutor, in the moment you actually need it? So it's 11 o'clock at night. You're like, oh no, I don't understand this physics problem set. And that really drove how we thought about the problem and how we thought about solving it. And because both of us, had a background in tech, so I was actually, at Google when we were originally working on Cardinal Scholars, it helped, inspire the way that we thought about taking that offline tutoring model and then making it better with, the online technologies that already existed. So prices range is anything from 40 to 75 cents a minute, depending on how much tutoring you want to use.
So going into all of this, what were you absolutely certain about? What did you know was going to work?
We were absolutely certain that way more students would use private tutors if they were more accessible. And we've absolutely seen that. So right now, almost half of our student base is in college. And traditionally, sort of the tutoring market has been primarily focused on K-12. So it really exposed this need where college students don't tend, some college students do, but a much smaller percentage, have a regular tutor. And what we saw is that college students, just like high school students, had the same challenges and, wanted to connect with someone and ask questions when they got stuck.
And so what was the biggest risk going into all of this?
Really just getting the product right. Whenever you're trying to facilitate, human interactions online, you really need to make it feel legitimate. So, we're really at a tipping point now in online education where enough technologies exist, with face-to-face video, with collaboration tools, that you can replicate that personal experience. But if we didn't do that right, there's just a huge impact there. So we really set out to say that online tutoring can be as effective as in-home tutoring. And if we didn't execute that properly, it just wouldn't have worked.
So what do you wish you would have known this time last year that would have made a big difference in your company?
Let me think about this for a second. I think one of the big things is just everything takes longer than you think it's going to take. So we launched actually almost exactly a year ago. We had a pretty basic product at the time. You could connect with someone over video. We had the on-demand lesson component. We didn't have scheduled lessons, anything like that. And so it took probably 4 or 5 months of us just experimenting with stuff, realizing what students needed, like seeing, for example, that everyone really wanted scheduled lessons. Seeing the tools that students needed to really start building up our student base in a scalable way. And once we sort of hit that point, everything took off very quickly. But early on, you're like, okay, why isn't this working yet? Why isn't this working yet? And you just really have to be patient in terms of learning and giving your team the time to build out everything, get to know your customers, and really understand what they want.
Absolutely, and that's such a fun process, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's look ahead for a second now. What's your biggest dream for InstaEDU?
We really want to be the personal layer across both online and offline education. So especially now, when you're talking about online education, again, we're at this tipping point where so much of education is moving online. Right now, I think over 40% of U.S. college students take at least one course online. And that's awesome. And then when you see, startups like Coursera and Udacity making, Stanford and, MIT classes available to everyone, that's great. But the big drawback there is that when you are taking, a course online alongside 400,000 other students, you lack that personal interaction. So you can't raise your hand in class and ask a question, poke your neighbor, that kind of thing. But with a platform like InstaEDU, you could actually connect to a Stanford student who took that class last quarter and got an A. So we see enormous potential basically to fuel those communications around, the education online, as well as just providing the sort of traditional supplement to tutoring and offline classes.